Google just launched Veo 3.1 with some brand new features just weeks after Sora 2 and Jake Paul flooding the internet. And so in this video, I'm going to be comparing the two models with some different examples generated from text to video, as well as walking through some of the specific features that you can now access with Veo 3.1 and how they might be valuable to you. Right, so firstly, you can access Veo 3.1 and Sora either through Higgsfield, FreePic, or Google Flow for Veo 3.1. I personally like using Higgsfield for video and FreePic for images. And so if you head to Higgsfield and hover over video and click on Google Veo 3.1 here, you'll then be able to obviously access the model. You've got a couple of options here. You've got Google Veo 3.1 and Google Veo 3.1 Fast. I've personally just been using Fast just because it's cheaper, it's faster, and the results aren't too dissimilar with the normal model. To access Sora, you can just do the same thing, and they've got Sora 2, Sora 2 Pro, Sora 2 Max, and Sora 2 Pro Max. These two ones are by Higgsfield, which I believe is them just tinkering with the model in the back end. And so I've been using Sora 2 Pro. And when I'm generating videos with both models, I like to just kind of generate them on the lowest res, so 720 for Sora, and for Google Veo 3.1 Fast, I actually generate this on 1080 because the credits are the same. One thing you'll find is when you're running these models at max res, they can be quite expensive. The downside of Sora 2 Pro is that if you run it at 1080, it does cost quite a lot of credits. And so when I'm just doing testing, I run them on the lowest resolution, and also duration is about 8 seconds, just so that I can get a feel for what's generated. And if I want to produce something of higher quality, once I've done my tests, kind of figured out how to use the models and what exactly I want to produce for like my final result, that's when I'll start using the higher res just to save on credits. And so to start with the different tests I did some ones where they were just sort of like just people, cinematic, kind of nothing really much happening. I then did some ones with speaking, and then also tried to do some ones where there's like different scenes within the 8-second clip. So here on the left, we've got the Sora clip, and on the right, the Veo. I was just kind of generating a man in the rain with a bit of a bokeh blur in the background. The Sora video, quite nice, quite realistic. The Veo one still seems to have this kind of waxy look. I kind of tested a few generations and found that this sometimes does it, sometimes doesn't. When I actually generated on Flow, it did the waxy look less. So if I just show you a video that I generated in Flow, as you can see here, this one is just a lot less waxy. I think that's better than the other one. I think both of these examples are not too bad. I think I preferred the Sora one here, which kind of was my preference for most of the generations, just because it just had, I don't know, it just feels a little bit more real. I don't really like how blurry this is in the background. It's lacking a bit of texture in the face here. I think that's probably because it's the lower res. The next test I did was two women laughing, just to get a sense of like how it handles emotion. So this is the Sora video.
That's hilarious. I can't stop laughing.
Quite like that, felt kind of natural. The beginning kind of wasn't, the laugh was okay. And then this is the Veo one.
That'll hilarious. I can't stop laughing.
Again, a bit weird at the start, but maybe the laugh was a bit too much. But one thing I've noticed with Veo 3.1 is the audio is much better on the voices. It doesn't have that like Veo 3 audio, which if you know, that you can kind of tell that it's Veo 3, but the audio just kind of all sound, it's got this, I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, the audio is definitely better on 3.1, and I think this audio on Sora is pretty good. Again, a little bit waxy here. You can see here, this kind of has that same, or I don't know, like just texture, color, like you see how they're very similar here, which I noticed with a lot of the Sora general. I quite like it. It kind of is that realism, like low quality kind of iPhone camera style. And then the next generation I did was more of a talking to camera one. So this is a Sora one.
The secret to perfect pasta is timing. You want it al dente, which means it should have a slight bite to it.
Not too bad. Scene in the background looks kind of real. A few weird shit happening, but again, happy with the result there. So this is the Veo one.
The secret to perfect pasta is timing. You want it al dente, which means it should have a slight bite to it.
Audio good there again, slight waxy look, but like we're kind of used to this look at the moment, but still preferring the Sora one here for faces. But as I said, I think when you generate these in Flow, which I did for other examples. I found that waxy look wasn't there, and I think after speaking to some people, I think maybe Higgsfield has access to the open API, which is the one where anybody can access, and I think on Google Flow it's got the closed API. Don't quote me on this, but the closed API is only for certain partners, and I think it might be better than the open like API. The next generations I did were kind of me dictating kind of a sequence of events, still one shot, but basically this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and I threw in like a time lapse in there to just see how they would handle it.
Let me show you my process.
That didn't do too bad a job. I would have expected him to walk into the shot here, and then it just added some strange music. But it handled the time lapse really, really well here. Not perfect. I don't know what that weird that is at the end, but it did the time lapse quite well there. And now this is the Veo version. So that's kind of what I wanted, is to walk into the shot and then speak.
Let me show you my process.
And as you can see, didn't handle the time lapse well. If it could have had that with that time lapse from Sora, that would have done really well. But in my example here, I think if I didn't ask it to do the time lapse, I think I would have gone with the Veo version here. Still a little bit of artifacts around the face here. Audio again sounds really good on 3.1. Then the final example I did was different actual changes of the cuts, where basically you can go 0 to 2 seconds, you want this to happen, 2 to 4 seconds, this to happen, 4 to 6, this to happen, 6 to 8. So you can basically dictate to cut different scenes within 8 seconds. And I think this is a really kind of efficient way if you don't need kind of 8 seconds of footage. Instead of running like one kind of whole scene across 8 seconds, you could ask for different cuts, which could help you save credits if you only need something for 2 or 3 seconds. This is a good way to do that. You just have to set up the prompt the right way, but the adherence is pretty good. So this is the Sora one.
Wow, this feels premium.
That section was quite nice. A bit weird, but I like that it kind of added that in. Didn't handle the unboxing at the start very well. That's not too bad. And then this is the Veo version. Again, not handling the box very well here.
Wow, this feels premium.
Don't mind that. So that's weird again. Both videos handled the people and audio not so well, kind of listening to in the instructions of the other shots here. I would say both of those did an okay job, not great. I think when you ask it to do too much, it struggles a little bit. Overall, I think Sora is better. The resolution on the Sora videos is obviously 720 and the Veo was 1080, so don't let that sort of sway you. The Sora ones I just felt were just more natural, more realistic. Just did the job more often than Veo, but I still think Veo is good. It's a little bit cheaper to run, good audio, as I've said multiple times, and I think Veo could really be good for maybe when there's just sort of like cinematic scenes, or even if you're just quick cutting as well. But I think if you use the Google Flow, you can get rid of that waxiness as well. And I believe if you have like one of those Google AI subscriptions, you get a few credits each month. So I definitely have a look to see whether you've got that, or consider upgrading to one of those. I think I pay $20 a month for probably around 25-30 video generations. I think that's where you're going to get the best quality with Veo 3.1. And so now just looking at some of the Google Veo 3.1 features, I'm going to first go through ingredients. To get access to ingredients, we want to go on Google Veo 3.1, go on ingredients here, and basically what this is, it lets you upload up to 3 images, and then with a prompt you can then kind of create a video with all of those images in along with the prompt. And so just going through my first example, I used these 3 images, obviously me, so like a backdrop and some heels, and this was the generation that I got. Not too bad. My face that kind of isn't me. The backdrop, obviously that isn't what I put in, but it's kind of kept it the same. The heels look pretty good, audio pretty good. And I did notice when you're putting in the ingredients, it doesn't just sort of sometimes take them as they are. It does a little bit of changing to them, especially the scenes, but I felt like it handled like the objects pretty well. The next example I did was this dog on a skateboard in like Tokyo City. This was a little bit of a harder example for it to master. I did a few generations here. I did one in Flow and I did one in Higgsfield. This was the one that I generated in Flow. Not too bad until he starts going backwards, but the kind of doesn't really look like the dog is there. Color is nice, but until he starts going backwards. And then this is the one that I did in Higgsville. This one has blended the kind of color of the dog into the scene a lot better. It looks like the dog is actually there, doing some weird shit with his feet. But I actually think that one's not too bad. Pretty good. I actually was quite happy with that. I could probably run that a few times just to get a bit more consistency and get the dog sitting still. And then the last option I did was just a simple one with me and some mist in sort of a black dark room. I did a couple of generations on this. This one I wasn't moving my head, but that actually does look like me. It did this one really, really well. And you can see there, like, there's not too much of a waxy look. It kind of added the smoke in. And then this one I decided to just ask it to move my head upwards. Looks like me, I would say, 95%. Retain the details of my face there, man. It's transferred my face quite nicely there. I think it did pretty good job in both of these with my face. But yeah, overall, ingredients is a fun feature. I would question the value of it when you've got things like Nano Banana, where you could just combine the 3 images together in an image and then do it, where you would have more control. I think that is probably better. There are probably some scenarios where ingredients is better, especially when you're maybe applying some like lots of movement, etc. And maybe you just want it to just generate something that you're not kind of really expecting. You just want to play around with it. But yeah, I would probably go and use Nano Banana to just actually combine the images together, just because you've just got more control. And so the next option is start and end frame. This has been available on lots of other different models. And so to do this, essentially you've got the start and end frame. Start frame is just the image that is the beginning of the video, and end frame is just the one at the end. You just drag and drop them into here, and then put your prompt in here. I did a couple of generations for this. I did this one where I used kind of this gorilla on the Eiffel Tower and this weird theme, and then on top of the plane. And this was the video that I got. Pretty happy with that in terms of like it sort of understanding that I wanted it to climb up the Eiffel Tower, and then it did the jump. The jump was a little bit unrealistic, but start and end frame is great for just controlling the motion through the video. I like to use start and end frame a lot. Usually I try, this is kind of a bit complex for it to do because the start and end frame are completely different. Usually start and end frame is great when lots of things are similar, or the backdrop is kind of similar, which I'll show you in the next example, where I use this sort of paper star and then turn it into this paper dinosaur. I actually think this did a really, really good job there. It kind of slightly changed at the end there. You'll see here because my images weren't exactly the same, but I love the way that it kind of folded out. The sound effects were great on this. Yeah, I thought that did a really good job there, and you can have so much fun with just little examples like this. But yeah, I'd really recommend always using like an image to generate with Veo personally, get more control, and then an end frame for even more control when you want to dictate the motion or movement in the video. And then lastly is extend, and you can access this in Google Flow. I didn't have a lot of fun with this feature because it just wasn't working that well for me. And so to access this, you want to just go on a new project. You then want to go at the top here and click Scene Builder. And then what you want to do is you want to type in your prompt here, and then just wait for that to generate. Right, so once that's generated, just did an F1 car. Obviously it will get to the end of the clip, and the reason why this is valuable is because being able to extend the clip means that you can keep the motion consistent rather than using the end frame as like the start frame of the next video. If you do that, it doesn't understand like what motion was in the last video, and this is why this is valuable and why I was using kind of an F1 car as an example. So what you want to do is you click on this plus here, you then go extend, and then you put what you want to happen next. So camera moves to an overhead shot of the car, and then you click generate. Right, and so once that's generated, we now have our second clip. So I'm just going to play this from the start. All right, so as you can see, that didn't work. However, I did actually do one. I wasn't having fun with this because it just wasn't working. So this was the first clip. There is a bit of point where it jars because I was playing around with the extension. So you just have to ignore this. That didn't happen in the original video. That was where it changed. And then it changed here. You can just hear it there. So it does maintain the motion consistently there, despite there was a bit of a jarring bit here. The reason why it did that, and I'll just show you so you don't do it yourself, is because I basically like extended it here, and then I couldn't like find the bit where it was just a bit annoying to just like get right, and I thought I put it there and it jarred, because to download the whole clip you go over to here and click download, and then it exported, and then I like went back out of it, and then the scene wasn't there and I couldn't redo it. So I gotta say, wasn't hugely impressed with just this feature like in terms of the interface, but it is valuable. If like it works for you, then great, but to me it was just pretty frustrating because you had to keep waiting for generation. So yeah, that's the video. Hope it was valuable. Hope it's just give you some ideas for how you can use these models. As I said earlier, I think Sora 2 is better, but actually really expensive. I think Veo 3.1 isn't much of an upgrade to Veo 3.0 in terms of quality of output. I just think you've got those different features now, and you've also got better audio. I think it's probably about 10-15% upgrade. When Google Veo 4 eventually comes out, I'm sure that will be fantastic and probably better than Sora 2. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video and hope you have a nice week, and I will see you in the next one.